The Leona Maguire thing reminded me of the Simpsons episode where Milhouse's parents split up and Homer has his second wedding to Marge, and they go like they're having the gig at the house and they're like, who likes the Doobie Brothers, because we got one of them.
Yeah.
I was like, where's the twin sister? She's even going to listen in now. She's going to be disgusted.
We're on the air, Johnny.
Is she listening? Maybe she is.
No, they're in the States because they're playing their first professional tournament on the East Coast this week.
I spoke to Colm Horgan after the Cork City game. What a family, 4 brothers all involved in football, and the Maguires obviously
very impressive.
Incredible achievement.
Yeah, no, Leona's career is remarkable. So she broke Lydia Ko's record for weeks at world #1 for the amateurs. Lydia Ko, in the 4 years that Leona has been at Duke University for the last 4 years, Lydia Ko has won about $10 million and about 15 to 20 tournaments. So if she does even like a tenth of that, that would be something. Now it seems college players who finish their 4 years don't do as well on tour traditionally, but Maguire could have turned professional a lot earlier. So we'll see how it all goes, and we'll talk to her before 8 o'clock or so. And then Peter Shilton, I mean, so 125 caps for England, still very much a record. Like, Shilton's career is so insane. I mean, it's the most crossing over of generations you can imagine. Debut in 1970, courtesy of Sir Ralph Ramsey. Walks into a dressing room with Bobby Moore, Bobby Charlton, the lads, basically.
Of that era, yeah.
Yeah, and 1970. And somehow goes from playing with them to, in the end, being in the same dressing room as, like, Gaza.
That's incredible.
So I'm really excited to talk to someone who has played with Bobby Charlton and Gaza. No one else has.
He was a big Clough, like he was Clough. So.
Centre forward, for example, having got through 2 ugly, ignorant, thug-like centre halves, then you have to then face Shilton, and you've got to then put it in the net. It was a daunting prospect, and I always thought that when centre forwards or inside forwards or strikers, whatever name you want to put to them, got through our defence and then had to face Shilton, they went, oh shit, we'll scrap it.
Sums it up nicely.
I have a match programme at home where Southampton played Galway United in 85, would that be right?
Don't know.
That sound about right? But Shilton was in goal.
Wow.
And Laurie McMenemy, it was an amazing team they had. It must have been some coup for Galway United at the time. But yeah, Peter Shilton.
Yeah. So we'll talk to him. He's live after 9. So if you're of a certain vintage and have questions you want to put to him, shoot, and we'll do that. 53106, or memories of Shilton.
Leicester man, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, came through at Leicester. Played for 11 clubs. He's the only player to have played over 100 league matches for 5 different clubs. Played just shy of 1,300 in the end. Like, his final game was in 1996 for Leyton Orient.
That is mad. And he was in a dressing room with Bobby Moore.
Isn't it insane?
That is mad.
Yeah, and I've been, over the last few hours, trying to get my head around that and what he must have seen. Like, even I don't ask him annoying questions like, can you compare Bobby Charlton to, you know, say a Gaza or other midfield players? But I can't not ask. Like, that's what if I was in a pub, that's what I'd want to know.
This is it must be a great interview. I'd definitely like to know what he thinks of the modern game in terms of...
It may not be a good interview. We have to find out after 9 o'clock. I think JP told him we do 10, 12 minutes.
Yeah.
So
the old hook him in.
Yeah. I need to be really complimentary for the first 5. Peter, it's just amazing to have you on.
Yeah.
Why are you so amazing?
Yeah.
Is question number 1.
He'd be a big fan of the show, no doubt.
Yeah, he's a huge fan. So we'll see how that goes. Peter Shilton after 9 o'clock. I saw you recently popped up in the last couple of hours a very interesting piece with Carl Shepherd.
Yeah, I was actually quite a bit out of the blue. I went down to...
Who is Carl Shepherd, Johnny?
Carl Shepherd was with Everton, and Sean Connor signed him for Galway United. Sean Connor would have a reputation for being one of the more eccentric managers in the League of Ireland, but he had a great eye for a player. He signed Stephen O'Donnell at Galway United. He signed Carl Shepherd. Signed some good players, but Carl Shepherd then moved on to Shamrock Rovers, would have played in that European run, that kind of seminal European run, and then signed for Cork City. And with Stephen Dooley, who signed for Rochdale, and Sean Maguire, who's obviously now what I believe to be Preston's highest paid player, I think with his new deal, I think that's what I understand anyway. Shepherd was one of the 3 strikers that made that front 3 irresistible when they went, like, I think they won their first 20 games or something last season, and he really fitted into that role of right of the 3. And then towards the end of the season, Cork started to play quite badly, and he wasn't playing that great either. And he started the season poorly. I think he scored in March and then didn't score again. And he scored twice against Derry the other night. And I was coming out of the ground, and I just ended up talking to him because we have a mutual friend. And he said, "Yeah, I've been struggling with arthritis." And arthritis always makes me think of, like, you know, someone old, basically.
Yeah.
And then psoriasis as well, which, even though I've a friend who has psoriasis actually as well. Again, you think of somebody old. So he found this out, and basically it is treatable, but he may be on injections possibly for the rest of his life. But he said, I was in so much pain, just everyday life, and I was getting really moany. And John Caulfield thought it was that he was driving a lot between Galway and Dublin. But
so I know initially they thought it was muscular.
Yeah.
But then it carried over from the summer. And
yeah.
So the medical team realised that can't be muscular.
There has to be something underlying.
Yeah.
But he was really, really good on Monday night. And I thought he was... I put up it's on the League of Ireland.ie website, but I put up a tweet about it, and somebody sort of quoted the tweet and said, I'm glad that somebody's spoken about this as somebody who suffers from the same ailment. And it was a girl, might be a Cork City fan. And I just admired him, and he was very candid, and it's just a good story, you know.
Yeah.
You know, it would have been sad if a fellow who was 26 or 7 had to have such an ephemeral career, because I think he's one of the most underrated players in the league. If I were a League of Ireland manager, he'd be one of the first players I'd sign. His attitude is top class, and when he plays in Europe, he doesn't look out of place at all. And he was very honest.
Where can people check out the interview?
It's on the League of Ireland.ie website. And just if you even look me up on Twitter, you'll find a quick link to it. Not Johnny Ward, that was in Love Hate, obviously, the other
Johnny Ward. You.
Yeah.
I'm going to read that interview. I got told last year I had arthritis in my foot. We should just... Again,
I didn't think you'd bring that up, but there you are.
Well, I need to get it double checked, or I need to figure out what the hell's going on, because it's kind of stopped me doing anything. 5 sides, gone for might manage a run a week, but have to be careful. And then even like to play golf. I certainly love to play a lot of golf, but even at the top, you start your downswing. There are all sorts of, old wives' tales and remedies. And
have you had any rash?
On your
There's
foot.
a silence there. Carl Shepherd was asked that, and he was like, "Have you had any rash?" And he's like, the doctor was like, she was a specialist neurologist, whatever, and she's like, "Yeah, have you had any rash? I think I might know what this is." And he's like, "No, I've nothing." And are you sure? And he's like, "A little bit under my shin." So, showed us, and yeah, you likely have.
Right.
I forget the actual specific name, but I would suspect you might have a different type of arthritis. If you have the one that Carl Shepherd has,
it's more treatable, is it?
It's treatable, but hopefully it won't impinge on your career.
I'll go looking for rashes.
I think you should meet Carl Shepherd.
Maybe I might.
Bung an interview out of it at the same time.
Yeah. Psoriatic arthritis is an autoimmune condition. It affects young and old, says Dr. JC.
Dr. JC is on the button.
Is that right?
That's exactly what it is, psoriatic arthritis.
Okay. It has to be said, Shilton was very poor during the 1990 semi-final shootout against Germany. If England had substituted in Chris Woods, they may have got to the final, says Steve. Yeah, I saw someone ask him about that actually earlier. It's been one of those days, and I haven't done as much research as I would like, but I think Shilton's response to that point was, well, have a look at the penalties. They were all brilliant, and you need a bit of luck in a penalty shootout, and that German team just walloped them all into the corners. It was very hard. Joe, can you ask Johnny to do his fantastic Cloughie impression? Did a great one the other night. I didn't hear this, didn't he? Is it unfair to ask you Cole to do an impersonation? Well, can I give you a bit of Clough? Will I give you a shot of Clough in your ear? Would that help? Or would you rather not have Clough right after you do an impression?
I can only really do an impression of one piece, but I read the book I Believe in Miracles. I'd gone to the documentary in Parnell Street Cinema, I think, but there's a piece in the book where one of the wingers is struggling, and he says to Clough, they're having a disagreement.
John Robertson?
It definitely wasn't John Robertson.
He never struggled.
It was a lad who, the little fat guy, John Robertson. But so the winger goes to him, I don't know, what do you want? Do you want me to make those runs down the channel? And he goes the only channel you'll be in, young man, is the English channel unless you book up your ideas. So I just think that's classic Clough.
Yeah. I'd say that gets
a great story.
I'd say that gets better with a few drinks as well.
Everything does.
Yeah, well, listen.
But it does have its pitfalls as well.
So, let's kick off our news round. And like I said, we have Leona Maguire before 8. Going to talk to Johnny actually about the money in racing. I'm sure you saw the Forbes list of the top 100 earners, sports people. We'll run you through some of that as well. Naturally, Floyd Mayweather came out on top with $375 million between June to June 17 to 18. But can talk to Johnny about the money in racing. I've no real sense of what it is, you know. So we'll talk about that.
It's probably something that isn't spoken about very much.
Well, I know I get the distinct impression that people working in the stables are getting tough money, not great money. But I could be wrong about that.
No, you're not.
Yeah, okay. Well, then we'll talk about that right up to jockeys on the upper tier before 8 o'clock. Keith Wood, Matt Williams after 8. We'll be talking NBA before 9, and then Peter Shilton, as we mentioned, is on the way after 9. Any questions you want for Shilton, fire them in. There is a chance he may say when 10 minutes are up he's done, but we'll do our best. So, Will, where are we starting the news round?
Well, Joe, play has been suspended for the remainder of the day at the French Open tennis. The 11th seed Diego Schwartzman is 1 set to love up against the 10-time champion Rafa Nadal, but Nadal will resume 5-3 up in the second tomorrow. Noteworthy, Nadal dropping that set. It's the first time in 37 sets he's lost one in Paris. That run goes back to 2015. Marin Cilic, the 3rd seed, and Juan Martín del Potro were playing a first set tiebreak before the rain covers were called for, and they were level in that tiebreak as well. So both those matches will resume tomorrow morning. The number 1 seed, Simona Halep, will face the 2016 champion Garba Muguruza in the women's semi-finals. Halep recovered from losing the first set to beat Angelique Kerber in 3, 6-7, 6-3, 6-2. The 3rd seed Muguruza was very dominant, winning in straight sets against Maria Sharapova 6-2, 6-1 in their quarter-final. John O'Shea has signed a 1-year contract with Reading. The 37-year-old defender will move to the Madejski Stadium on a free transfer when his deal at Sunderland expires at the end of this month. O'Shea, who retired from international football last weekend, will join Paul McShane and David Myler at the Royals. Myler signing yesterday. And the Waterford native is delighted to link up again with the Reading boss Paul Clement.
I worked with him a good few years ago with the Irish underage, under 21s, and when he was involved with the senior team for a couple of caretaker games when he was assistant, and that was obviously it stuck in my mind how much of an impressive coach he was in person too. So to get the chance to work with him again and was important. I'm very familiar with some current players and some former players at Reading who've done very well. So it's I was able to obviously speak to them, get little bits of advice, and it was all, you'd be glad to hear, it was all very positive. So now looking forward, as I said, to getting started now. Last season, the club, because it was so close the season before, they would have been obviously disappointed. But I think when you have it was probably tough in terms of. So it was such a heartbreaking loss in that playoff final. Probably the hangover just lasted a bit too long. But now there's some exciting players in the squad, some good young players. I'm hoping to obviously pass on my experience to them, but also help out on the pitch. That's the first and foremost. That's the most important thing.
Seems to be heavily hinting there he could be going into a coaching role at Reading along with playing as well.
You feel he has the right temperament for coaching, level-heading him. Phil Mickelson apparently has psoriatic arthritis. He has in his hands, Phil. He'll often doesn't like playing in the cold, in particular, in the last number of years. And I don't know why, and I'm sure some doctor might explain or not care either, but seems to have to drink a lot of coffee for some reason.
Because of the condition?
Yeah, it seems to help with the condition. I don't know why, I don't know what the science is. I heard him do a brilliant interview a couple of years ago, last year with Alan Shipnock, and he's become a massive coffee fiend. So we'll just guzzle it kind of constantly throughout the day, and it seems to help his condition, as well as medication. But I don't know why, and I'm not advising that.
What is the part about keeping his hands warm as well? Because arthritis, kind of cold and damp, hates those conditions too.
As in to hold a hot coffee
physically
mug?
Just having a hot...
I don't think so, because like you could have a hot tea or hot water. It's specifically coffee, and he seems to almost make it himself. He's a real type A personality. So now that he's into coffee, it's like the greatest coffee in the world.
It's certainly not the worst thing to have to do to, help a condition. Drink a lot of coffee.
Yeah, I guess so. Someone says, James Murray in Cork, my son, well, I better not... You gave your name. My son has arthritis at 16, 19 now, all cleared up after injections, which is interesting. And JP has just Googled coffee and arthritis. Google says it exacerbates arthritis rather than cures it.
Which coffee?
Yeah.
Life is very strange, because if I spoke to a couple of people outside the ground in Cork, and if they delayed me maybe another half minute, this would never have come up. It just wouldn't have happened, and now we're talking about arthritis.
Yeah, there is an unpredictability to it all, Johnny.
It's all...
I would say especially your life somehow.
Yeah.
Mine's a fairly predictable life.
Well, when you go to Turner's Cross and then you go to a First Division game in Cove, you do start questioning things. You start looking around and going,
You don't have time for reflection in those hours, no?
It's just there's too much time for reflection, Joe, I think, to be honest.
And so what's it like going to a Cove game these days?
The pitch is poor. The last time I'd been in Cove was the guts of 20 years ago, and I remember at half time they said there's this kid coming on, he's just won the Bobby Charlton skills.
David Beckham.
Stephen Ireland.
And I said, he win that as well?
Yeah, I said that's a name that's notable, and I was like, I'll remember that name because it's Stephen Ireland. But then, obviously, he lost a grandmother or two, and I didn't need to remember him anyway.
David Beckham won that Bobby Charlton skills thing as well. Yeah. Famously. I don't know what he'd be doing in Cove, but that was the name that came to mind.
He got to go to the new camp. Stephen Ireland got to go to Cove.
It was like time travelling though, going from Cove to Turner's, or from Turner's Cross to Cove. But it's such a quaint ground, St Coleman's Park, and Cove is a strange place. It feels quite British. It's a real seaside British town, kind of in many ways.
I've never been.
Yeah, it's actually served by a railway line, a commuter railway line, which outside of Dublin is obviously very, very unusual. But obviously it just looked amazing the other day. But the ground itself, Cove are nominally, they're basically an amateur club.
Yeah.
But it had its charms.
Yeah. So Manchester United have made another signing, Will.
Yeah, second one of the summer so far. The Portuguese teenager Diogo Dalot is their second signing of the summer. The 19-year-old who can play at left or right back arrives for €20 million from Porto, and he's agreed a 5-year contract at Old Trafford. Jose Mourinho, full of praise in the statement he put out earlier. He says they've signed an extremely talented young defender who is the best fullback in Europe in his age group. It follows on, of course, from United's capture of the Brazilian midfielder Fred yesterday as well. As Johnny mentioned, Republic of Ireland international Seanie Maguire has signed a new 3-year contract with Preston. The 24-year-old joined the Championship club from Cork last summer and has now agreed a deal which will keep him at Deepdale until 2021. Maguire was Preston's top scorer last season despite missing nearly 4 months of football due to a hamstring injury.
Yeah, he's done really well. With regards to Shilton, he was brave, agile and maestro of goalkeeping. I would like to know, says Dennis St. John in Mayo, who is the best striker he faced and the best centre-half he played behind. For the record, Peter was better than Ray Clements, adds Dennis. Yeah, there was a period where Ron Greenwood just played Clements and Shilton every second game. He just couldn't make up his mind.
Like Tony Ward and who was a great Ollie Campbell.
Yeah. Okay.
Got to ask about Cloughy as well, haven't you?
I think Clough will definitely ask about a good bit, because he went there. He won PFA Player of the Year. Not many goalkeepers do. I don't know has any other goalkeeper won PFA Player of the Year? Not in my memory. I can remember back to about 92, 93 when McGrath won it.
Yeah, not in modern time anyway.
I don't think so. We'll check that. I don't think Shilton's probably the only goalkeeper. That's one. Nobody votes for goalkeepers.
It's strange, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's an important position. Like
77, he won it when he joined Forest in that first year. Rugby next.
Yeah, World Rugby have confirmed, Joe, that Russia will be in Ireland's Pool A at next year's Rugby World Cup. Spain and Romania have today lost their appeals against that Independent Disputes Committee decision to dock them points from the European qualifying tournament. You might remember that Spain complained about the fact that there was a Belgian referee in their game against Romania. It was then later found that Spain, Romania and Belgium had all used ineligible players in their matches. Today's ruling now means Russia go into Ireland's pool along with Germany, Portugal and Samoa, who are still in contention to take the final spot for Japan in Ireland's pool there. The Ireland head coach Noel McNamara, meanwhile, 6 changes for tomorrow's final pool game against Georgia at the Under-20 World Rugby Championship. Coming in, flankers Aaron Hall and Jack Daly. They have their first starts of the tournament. Matthew Dalton will start in the second row. Hugh O'Sullivan returned to scrum half. Peter Sylvester picked at full back. And on the wings, you've got Peter O'Sullivan and Sean O'Brien. Ireland can't advance to the semi-finals because they lost to both France and South Africa last week.
Pat Jennings. Pat Jennings is the name that I've been fired. 75-76 season for Spurs. PFA Player of the Year. So he won at 75-76. I'm pretty sure it's 76-77 when Shilton wins it.
That's mad, isn't it?
Even more, Mark.
Oh, sorry, 77-78. So 2 goalkeepers within the space of 2 years. And then that's basically it.
I think his son is still at St. Pat's of the same name. Pat Jennings, his son.
He played for Athlone for a while too.
Yeah, I think he's still at St. Pat's.
Jeez, no pressure.
Yeah.
I was at the Neckar Stadium in Stuttgart for Euro 88 for Ireland-England. One of the most memorable moments, besides that goal, was Peter Shilton walking on his own into the first half goal, which was down the Ireland end, and we all applauded him. That's the mark of the man that is Peter Shilton, says Brendan in Cork. Nice touch from the Irish fans. We were just happy to be there. It was Peter Shilton,
And we were having a good time.
Yeah. So, sticking with rugby?
Yeah, well, the former Leinster coach Michael Cheika has called the Waratahs hooker Tolu Latu into the squad ahead of Saturday's test match against Ireland in Brisbane. He replaces Jordan Ulisse, who suffered a cruciate ligament injury over the weekend. It's the only change ahead of that, and Ireland had all their players out training yesterday for their first pitch session, and so that means the likes of Ian Henderson and Robbie Henshaw could be in contention to play this weekend.
Yeah, the word on certainly the Irish Times had it up this afternoon. We'll talk to Matt Williams and Keith Wood after 8 o'clock, is that Sexton is not going to start the first game, and actually quite a few of the players not starting are all Leinster players. So it seems like Joey Carbery will make a start at number 10 for the first test.
His move is paying off already.
Yeah.
How big is that going to be, Joe? You have some rugby knowledge. I was on this with Brian O'Driscoll of a morning, and I actually genuinely mean this. He spoke so well about rugby, it rekindled an interest in myself that's been lost a long time ago.
You were on here with Brian Driscoll?
Off the ball AM.
Oh, I missed it.
Yeah, he'd come back from...
What did he make of you?
I don't know. I didn't ask him, to be honest, but he's just such a good talker on rugby. And
Yeah, he's great.
what is Joey Carbery? Is Joey Carbery going to be the difference for Munster now, in your erudite opinion?
I wouldn't. I mean, who knows? Certainly Conor Murray was talking about how excited they are to get him down. They're already calling him Rog in Ireland camp. You sniff your nose at that. In your answer to how big is Ireland-Australia going to be? Well, from an Irish perspective, if Ireland win, then very big, because they haven't won a tour down there since 1979.
They haven't won in Australia, and it's
And one test tour down there, 79.
Ireland would be better than Australia right now, wouldn't they?
Yeah. But home advantage is important. So I think it's 12-0. Is it 12-0 or 10-0 since 79? And that was the tour when Tony Ward went down there as European Player of the Year.
Wow.
And to everyone's shock, the guy who had barely made the squad and had played in one match 3 years earlier and missed all 4 kicks in that match, Ollie Campbell, is put in ahead of Ward.
Isn't that a beautiful symbiote? You know, just a beautiful kind of...
So that was there, and the whole country erupted, it seems, and it was front page news. So 79, when Campbell replaced Ward, is the last time that Ireland won a test series down there. So it'd be huge. I mean, I don't know if the logic follows, but I've heard it said a lot that, you know, if Ireland want to go and win a World Cup, they really have to go down to the Southern Hemisphere and win. I don't know why that's true, to be honest, necessarily, but it's been thrown around anyway.
The World Cup's not in the Southern Hemisphere, sure it isn't.
It's in Japan.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not like it's a neutral venue. If they play Australia there, I mean, you'd be very confident they'd win. As for how big it is for Australia, it's good to have Matt Williams on, because it seems that literally by the year, rugby union goes more and more down the pecking order and is in kind of crisis over there. Like, so the State of Origin series was on this morning, the Rugby League over there, which is the only show in town, it seems. And that's completely dominating the news cycle, much more over Ireland versus Australia. And I think the second test is going to be dominated by Australia's opening game in the World Cup. In football. Yeah. They play France. They've got a really good opening game in the World Cup, so it's way down the pecking order.
Is that consistent with sort of T20 cricket just being Test cricket struggling because the other form of it is just a bit more exciting, or is more happening?
I don't know. I must ask Matt why it's not happening over there, or is there a reason? Maybe there were always just pockets that were stronger.
Australia being poor the last 2-3 years probably hasn't helped either.
Yeah. But then Cheika got them to a World Cup final. You forget, he turned it around, and he's a very likeable guy. And well, ask Matt. I don't know. There's probably Australians listening who have a better feel for how popular it actually was at its most popular, and then how it compares now. So 2 more pieces, Will.
Yeah, Michaela Walsh has stunned the world champion Alicia Massanio to join the rest of the quarterfinalists in the featherweight division at the European Women's Boxing Championships in Sevilla. The Belfast boxer had her hand raised in victory after getting a unanimous decision from all the judges. Massive shock today. Walsh now into those last 8, which means she boxes for a medal in the next round on Friday, and she's also booked her place at the next European Championships as well as a result. Trainer Paul Nicholls is leading the tributes to 2008 Cheltenham Gold Cup winner Denman, who's died at the age of 18. Nicholls says Denman was a magic horse who had a tremendous following because of the wholehearted way he went about his racing. Denman also won the Lexus Chase and the Hennessy Gold Cup twice before retiring in 2011, having claimed 14 victories in 24.
Sorry, Will. Denman, Johnny?
He was magnificent for racing, and the fact that he and Koto Star were around at the same time, literally lived next... There was a wall between them, I think. It was a magically romantic story, and you didn't have to be, British racing was especially strong at that time, evinced by the fact that they had 2 Gold Cup horses in the 1 yard. But in fairness, Paul Nicholls' comment is nailed on. He was a warrior of a horse. Koto Star was kind of like this French aristocrat type, French bred, who was stretched out to the Gold Cup trip, Denman was like, he was like this bulldog that just this raw strength that would go from the front, and obviously beat his stablemate in one of the epic Gold Cups when Paul Nicholls had a 1-2-3, and I never really mourned the death of a horse. You know, it's life, and they are what they are. But he left memories that he would have gotten people into racing. I wasn't all that long into racing actually when Denman was around. And
were you not? I thought you were just in it from day one.
No, not at all. I only got into it sort of around 2002, 2003. So Denman came along then obviously a few years after that. But what a beautiful, beautiful horse. And it was kind of sad to see the way he sort of, I'm just looking here, he lost his last 6 races, won one of his last 10. It was a little bit sad to see that he regressed. But I think he was one of them horses that gave so much when he raced that he was always probably signing his own death warrant in a way. In not so much his death warrant, but certainly in terms of how long he could go career-wise.
Yes, okay.
And beautiful, beautiful horse. We've lost Moscow Flyer not that long ago as well. So 2 of the true greats of National Hunt Game.
And forgive my ignorance, who won the war between Kodo Star and Denman?
Denman actually.
Right.
Denman, I'm trying to think now. I think he actually, Neptune Calange might have been second. Kodo didn't really perform on the day. No, Kodo got up for second. That was 2008. 10 years ago now. He beat him by 7 lengths. It was that great commentary, relentless, remorseless, ruthless, or something like that. And you could kind of tell all the way he was going to win.
Right.
But he actually won one of his 10 races after that, which doesn't do him a service really. He won the Hennessy in 2009. It's funny how you forget these things. There's so much racing, you know, it kind of fries your brain after a while. But he was, if you owned a horse, and of course he was owned then by Harry Finlay, part owned by Harry Finlay and Barber, 2 completely different characters. Harry Finlay was like a real aggressive gambler type who just loved life, and then Barber was a far more, like Paul Barber was a far more kind of austere Englishman, and they just kind of, it was just such a mad story. And what a horse.
Yeah, okay. Last text or two. Apparently Leinster winger James Lowe had arthritis from the age of 14 to 18, seriously affected his development to senior rugby. I presume someone hasn't gone to the trouble of making that up, so that seems like he had it from 14 to 18. And then proof that the listeners always know more. It's because coffee helps to mobilise glucose from the liver, which helps the body to create heat in the extremities through using said glucose as energy or fuel.
Are you a coffee drinker?
Yeah.
So you're actually self-medicating already?
I am, yeah. Medicinal.
Unwittingly.
Gets me through the day. We'll take a short break. That's our news round done. Cheers, Will. Back in a second.
Off the Ball on News Talk. The Eason Book Club on The Pat Kenny Show.
This month, Eason recommended 4 books for us. The Trick to Time by Kit DeWall, Every Note Played by Lisa Genova, Travelling in a Strange Land by David Park. And this June, the Eason Book Club Book of the Month is The Sun Does Shine, How I Found Life and Freedom on Death Row by Anthony Ray Hinton. In 1985, Anthony Ray Hinton was arrested and charged with 2 counts of capital murder in Alabama. Hinton knew that it was a case of mistaken identity and believed that the truth would prove his innocence and ultimately set him free. But with no money and a different system of justice for a poor black man in the South, Hinton was sentenced to death by electrocution. But as Hinton realised and accepted his fate, he resolved not only to survive, but to find a way to live on death row. We'll be reviewing the book from cover to cover on Thursday, the 14th of June, with Mary O'Rourke, Brian Kennedy and Catherine Lynch.
The Eason Book Club on The Pat Kenny Show, sharing book recommendations with book lovers every month.
Do join us and discover more at newstalk.com/Eason's Book Club.
Isn't it always the way? When your toddler learns to flush things down the toilet, your keys will be the first victim. And that's when 123.ie steps in. Our comprehensive car insurance has you covered